If you make your way to the PlayStation 3 store, or at least maybe some old stores that used to sell digital video games for consoles, you're going to see playable demos of some superhero games. I know for sure that Batman Arkham City is one of those games that does have a demo on those digital stores. Also, if you come on PC, you're going to also find out that Batman Arkham City has a demo available for players who want to actually try out the game. Demos seem to be something that seems to be archaic and ancient, and this is a point in game conversation that I get disagreed with a lot by both gamers and even developers. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. We talk about video games a lot. Shout out to all the developers and all the gamers that tune into this channel. I am not deserving of your attention, but I do thank you for joining in the conversation. And I really want to make this case because I feel it's very important for gaming as a whole. The past few weeks or months has actually revealed a good number of video games and gamers actually showing what it is that they want from a video game. At the end of the day, there's still a lot of uncertainty. A lot of gamers are not necessarily sure how they want to basically approach a video game. Even if they might be interested, the cost is something that they have to factor in and consider. For the longest time, I started to cover Gotham Knights from the perspective of what is this game about? And in my conversations, I made a lot of insinuations saying that I thought it was very necessary for the development team to release a demo for the game. Now, this would have actually alleviated a lot of things. We're not going to go back and do this hindsight is 2020 thing too long in this video, but we kind of have to touch it a little bit. And you can already see and tell that for many people who bought the game, they already made up their minds that they didn't like the game after playing it, but they spent money and actually put their time and effort in there. And so that discovery was probably very disappointing because they had actually committed their funds to purchasing the game. For those who played it and vibed with it, they were actually, in a sense, for the most part, surprised. That's usually the positive reviews. I'm surprised how good this game is because many of them went in not knowing what to expect. And a lot of the uncertainty stemmed from the reviews and all of the noise in the internet. You even have Callisto Protocol facing the exact same thing today. If you go look on the Steam pages of these games that are just coming out, you're going to realize that there is a lot of uncertainty from players because a lot of what people are seeing on the open is not necessarily building confidence. One way that developers can eliminate this is creating demos that are spliced out of their full gameplay. The developers that usually come into this channel and talk about things have informed me that demos are kind of hard to make because they take away from the time from development. I know that they're hard to make, but I think they're very important because it really puts a player in the position where they're able to make up their mind whether or not they want to deal with the game or whether or not they want to actually abandon the game for good. If you notice, there seems to be a theme with some Eastern developers to put demos and make them available for their players. I mean, you can think about a game like Resident Evil. I remember Resident Evil 3, Raccoon City, having a demo. This was a demo that I played very briefly, and as somebody who's not really big into the horror genre, I remember playing it and I said to myself, there is no way I'm actually playing this game because the game did not appeal to me. The game is not a game that actually suits my playstyle, nor am I the target audience for it. But it really did go ahead to satisfy my curiosity. Gaming is about curiosity for the most part, and gamers are a very curious bunch. So if you actually help them to maybe get a taste or a kind of a small touch of their curiosity, maybe met, or at least you expose them to your game in a different way, I think you have a successful picture that you can build. Unless, of course, these game developers or their publishers want them to hide the fact that their games may not necessarily be performing well. Hence, they don't want to release a demo that is not representative of the full game. This is what I think might be the deterrent from a lot of these demos. The technical challenges that the full game may have that may differ from the demo. But we have other video games that still do demos. The Final Fantasy games, they still also do demos. You go back and look at even the developer of Neo with one of their new games that's coming out called Wolong. They released a demo that you could play for a very good amount of time. And I can understand that it might be something that is not convenient, but it is not unconventional. In fact, demos used to be the basis of gaming for the longest time. Remember back in the day, I don't know when some of you were born. I don't know when some of you were actually playing video video games. But in the time that I kind of started, I remember a friend of mine, my neighbor, having a PlayStation 2, and all he had were demo discs. That's literally all the games that we played. We would literally launch his demo discs for his PlayStation. Did I say PlayStation 2? No, sir. I meant PlayStation 1. And we would play Crash Bandicoot. We'll play some of the other games, the sports games that came with those demo discs. And that's all we had as these video games. And there was a desire, kind of a taste, for these games. And we knew exactly what games we would like. And we would hope one day that we could afford those games and play them. Another corporation that actually uses this strategy, or at least I would say corporations in an industry that use this strategy, are food corporations. This is why a lot of food companies give out free samples. They give you a taste, the customer, of their product for something that you've probably never tried or something that you might never try. And if you were to like it, now they've created a customer for that product out of you. So this is the argument for gaming that I think is needed to be made. Sure, gaming is not food. I know this, but I strongly believe that if you actually go ahead and furnish your player base with these elements, there is a benefit to it at the end of the day. Another reason that I'm making this video, and before I conclude, is that fact that when you actually look at the way gaming is done, a lot of the old model of marketing these video games seem to be highly ineffective. And the reason they are is because a lot of these companies will take their games and do these showcases where they go ahead and they show everything to, a lot of these different games outlets, IGN or GameSpot or whatever it is. Whereas the, consumer is just sitting there and waiting for this game to eventually release so that they can get a feel for the game, something that you can never get from watching somebody else play the game. And guess who is the target audience for this game? The consumer. So why would you be giving your games, and this is a very crazy argument, to only reviewers and not necessarily giving your own direct customers at least a small taste of your product? It's really perplexing to me. I'm not saying reviewers should not necessarily get a hold of these games and talk about things and try to give as much as they can an objective perspective, but I'm also saying that the game feel that the consumer, the end user, gets to actually experience is also a nice complementary thing to the reviews that are going out there. So if I was making a game, and I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes, I don't think I'll make a game, but if I actually had a game that was coming out, I would make a demo and also go through all of the marketing so that the demo kind of complements things, so that when the reviewers are talking about their own side of what it is that they've played, the player can also juxtapose that with what it is that they've experienced, because the reviewer may have their own position or their own ideas, and it may contrast heavily from what the end user experiences. Case in point, Gotham Knights, a game where almost all the reviewers that actually did look at that game basically gave that game mediocre scores. It was so weird, and I'm so thankful that on the release of that game, I stopped myself short of watching a review, and then I went straight to my Xbox console and I started playing the game for myself. And behold, I was amazed as to how I enjoyed the game, and I was amazed as to how the reviews were so much in contrast from what it is that I played. And so were a lot of people down the road. They were like, I don't know what these reviewers were talking about, but I enjoyed this game. So I think a demo will be able to clear up a lot of what is in the air in terms of the differences, in terms of people just basically seeing and experiencing the games from their own opinion, which there is nothing wrong with. A lot of reviewers will also tell you that it's just their opinion. But at the end of the day, you're not making your video games for reviewers, game devs. You're making your games for the end users. So make sure that they have a taste of your game and they know what you're about as much as you possibly can. If it's something that you have to go to your publisher and say, hey man, we really need this. Can you make this happen? Can you give us maybe a month to put together maybe a 10-minute slot of this game where this, the players can actually get a little bit of an experience of our project? I think it's actually very, very, very critical and really needs to be prioritized more than it is in today's modern gaming. But hey, who am I? No one might listen, and some might also listen. And there are probably other arguments out there. I've seen somebody say that, it might affect sales and so on and so forth. I think it'll enhance sales. If somebody tests out your game and they like it, they're buying it. They don't care what any reviewer says. I think that's basically the risk that you have to take, but you're already taking a risk making this video game anyways. You're spending millions of dollars. You spent hours and years making the game. What's one more risk to take at that point? Thanks so much for watching the video. I appreciate you guys' time and audience, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.